Hey everyone, and welcome to another weekly Sunday talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm one of your two hosts, Nor Kyle.
Along with the other one of your two hosts, Mushtaq Ali.
Yeah. And we are so glad you're here as we continue forward with our alchemy themed month. Ooh, Chris is here. Wonderful. We know this is his jam, this alchemy thing.
Yeah.
All right. Chris is here, yay. Okay, so before we get rolling, of course, we have to do our spiel. We know how you all love that. So if you are watching us here live, you're participating live, we're so glad you're here. Thank you for being here and making this a more vibrant discussion. And if you're joining us on the replay, thank you for watching on YouTube as well. We are so glad you're able to join us in whatever means is available to you. And you can interact with us as well via comments on YouTube. You can like our video. We really do benefit from those likes, so we do appreciate that. And you can subscribe to our channel so you can stay abreast of what we're up to here. Additionally, you can use the links in our description to perhaps join us on our Facebook group, which is the Nine-Sided Circle Facebook forum. Other than that, we are definitely still going strong on our Sufi retreat signups. This is our live retreat in Sweden, and we still have room. So if you're interested in that, we are keeping registration open as planned from now until March 12th, I believe.
Yeah, I think we have
yeah,
3 spaces left.
something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So get it while the getting's good.
Yes. Please do. We would love to have you join us if it seems like this might be a good fit for you. Is there
And you're
anything
willing
else?
to do the work.
Yes, that is something we feel we need to emphasize because this is not a, a yoga retreat where everybody goes off and does their own thing quietly alone and gets food catered and all of that stuff. This is an immersive Sufi experience, which means we are basically going to be living and working together for 5 days. And that means a lot of connecting and a lot of co-learning, I guess we could say. And you'll learn more about that in our link in the description, which I will make sure I add ASAP if it's not there, if you immediately watch this video after it gets posted. So, anything else? Do I need to make any other announcements?
Just that we are coming up on our annual fund drive, not fund drive, but fund drive. So stay tuned for the information about that. You will really be interested in it, even though you don't know that you'll be interested in it. Trust me on this. I wouldn't steer you wrong.
So look forward to that. News will be coming up on that in the next week or two, I believe. All right, with no further ado, I guess we can get started on tonight's topic, which is going to combine many of our interests. Of course, our theme for this month, which is alchemy, but our ongoing inspiration, which is the Enneagram. Now, Mushtaq, where do you want to begin?
I want to begin with talking about the model for the Opus Magnum, the great work. And we've talked in a previous video about the octave of steps that one goes through in an alchemical transformation. And this is different from that. This works with the idea of colors, of all things. And it started out with 3 colors, and then somebody somewhere along the line added a 4th color. And we're going to look at all of this, and I'm going to go back to my oldest, most original understanding of this and show how it will fit on an Enneagram. Now, this Enneagram is going to be different slightly from the ones that the main one that we teach people first. There are many, many ways to use an Enneagram. Just because you read about one Enneagram in a book somewhere, or some teacher told you about one Enneagram, that doesn't mean it's the only way. I personally know at least 6 different ways to use an Enneagram, probably more if I look back through my notes, but 6 that I use regularly. And so this is one of them that is not quite what we have been teaching before, but it should make sense if you've been following along. And if it doesn't, it gives you a chance to learn something. Yes? No? Maybe? Good.
Sounds good.
Yeah, Chris is excited. So,
Yeah.
do you think people will need to watch any videos for background on this, or do you feel like this?
No, that we haven't done any videos on this before, so
So this is fresh water then.
yeah. So let me start out by sharing my screen. Let me know when you can all see this.
Fancy.
Yeah.
All right, thumbs up if you can see this. Good, good, good. All right.
So we're starting out with the triangle. And y'all know about the 3 forces. And these 3 words here, which I am going to describe to you in mere moments, fit perfectly within the 3 forces. So the first word starts down here. Can you all see my cursor as it moves around
Yep.
here?
You can see it moving around.
Yeah.
Good. Down here is the denying force, which is called nigredo or nigredo, which means the blackening. The affirming force is albedo, which means the whitening. And the reconciling force is the rubedo, which means the reddening. So these 3 forces and these 3 actions constitute the essential element of the great work. These 3 steps to this process are what you have to go through in order to do what the great work is. Now, what is the great work? Any thoughts? Chris, you know what the great work is. Tell us what the great work is. The Opus Magnum, or the Magnum Opus, depending on how you like your Latin.
Self-realization, actualization.
Yes. And it is the creation of the Philosopher's Stone. Yes. We want that Philosopher's Stone, and this is how we do it.
So before you take any steps forward, I think here's a spot where we could pull from other videos we've done. And if people are not familiar with affirming, denying, reconciling, we've done videos on the 3 forces. So that should help clarify.
And we'll throw that up at the end.
What we
We'll
mean.
hunt them down and put them up.
Okay, so onward.
I have a
Great
question.
work. Oh,
Yes.
we have a question.
Is there any significance with the the denying? I think it's picture of fire. Is that there? And then the affirming is red stuff, and then green stuff.
There's not real significant. The main significance to this is that it's pretty.
Okay.
I wanted it to look, have a bit of an alchemical flavor, and I could make up stuff, but fire is appropriate because fire works through all 3 of these. But basically, it's just a cool triangle. I kind of went crazy today.
I like it though. And thank you for asking, Mr. Keem. Sorry, it's not an exciting answer, but it's, the honest one. And I think it looks
I am often moved to coming up with bullshit about this stuff that makes people go, wow. But, better to tell you the truth. I just made a pretty picture and I liked it. I needed a triangle. And I needed something that would give you a sense of the 3 forces. And I mean, we even have the gold on one side and the silver on the other. So there's all of these, there's all of this alchemical imagery here, but it doesn't really, it's not organized. That's a nice way to say it. Not organized. So you will notice, and we will put a link up to the 3 forces and the 6 processes, because this is the process that would be 213. The process of denying, affirming, reconciling.
Yeah, so you'll find that at the end of this video.
Yeah, and that's more than we can talk about right now, but that will tell you what kind of process this is. It's just a way of tricking you into watching more of our videos so that we get better stats on YouTube.
Slaves to the algorithm.
Slaves to the algorithm. So we understand that these 3 were the first way that this was described. There is a 4th point that was put in, and I will show you how that all fits together in moments, but I want to talk about what you have here. Nigredo, the blackening, is the rotting and putrefaction of what you were working with, which is to say, the breaking down and digesting of the material. The albedo, the whitening, is the subjecting that black tarry substance of your psyche to a more intense flame to purify it. And then the rubedo is the idea of taking what has been purified from the first 2 processes and recombining it into something that is real. Make sense?
Yeah, any questions
right.
so far?
Then let's look at this.
Ooh,
Yeah. So you'll notice that we have the 3 forces set up here. And here's the 4th force, which is called the citrinitas. And it's not, it is not a process like these 3, because these 3 are shocks. But this is a crossing of the equator. Once you have moved over this, you cannot undo what you have done. And so this is,
What's citrinitas mean?
I can't hear you.
What does citrinitas mean?
It means the yellowing. And this is often called the yellow death, because this is a process of something dying. And that's why you can't go back from it. You know, it's like you can't undead yourself. Well, you could be undead, but then you'd be a vampire and people drive stakes through your heart and all of that, and it's a mess. But at the equator, you have to consciously choose to progress at this point. And that conscious choice disallows the possibility of going back to sleep. So let's talk about how this works. And this is us talking about this in the sense of creating the internal philosopher's stone. I don't care about turning lead into gold. You know, there's an old saying in the alchemical business: I did it. I finally did it. I turned lead into gold, and I got a whole 1/100th of an ounce of gold out of it. It only cost me $3 million, and now I have radiation poisoning. If you know anything about alchemy,
and a really high electricity bill too, probably.
that too, yes. Not to mention that your neighbors are going to be really, really upset about that high energy cyclotron you built in your backyard. But you can use this for creating the internal Philosopher's Stone, where you turn the lead of your ego into the gold of your soul. How's that for poetic?
I think that's much more useful for
Yeah,
the vast majority of us.
it's way more useful to me
Yep.
because I don't want radiation poisoning. And that's what happens when you turn lead into gold. So the first shock is the nigredo, the darkening.
So that's the
And
0/9 point.
yep, 0/9 point up here. This is the entering shock. And one gets this shock when one realizes that there is an area of mechanical behavior that has been running you and you must deal with. When you go, I can no longer allow this behavior pattern to control my life. I have to step up and make the changes necessary to overcome this. The thing that you do first is you must create the alchemical vessel. This is the vessel that you use to begin to heat and putrefy this object of your consciousness. The alchemical vessel is an awareness container. We talk about self-observation. Self-observation is a method of creating the alchemical vessel. I look at this behavior, I hold it away from myself so that I can see it. I allow myself to witness it happening over and over again. But I keep it contained within my awareness. I don't let myself go to sleep behind it. Once I do that,
So that's step one after this.
that's step one.
Shock.
Yes,
Yeah.
after the entering shock. Once I do that, and remember, this is preparation, action, shock. Preparation, action, shock. Preparation, action, shock. Preparation, on and on and on. In a spiral, upwards or downwards. So when I have created this alchemical vessel through my awareness, through the observation of this behavior, and allowing my consciousness, my being, to separate itself from the mechanical action, then we add the first breath. What is the importance of breath, other than you die if you don't have it?
James, you want to give it a go?
Well, it's the foundation, isn't it? Breath awareness. I mean, that's how you sort of anchor the process. Or I don't know.
This is true.
Very well, but
this is not the answer I'm looking for.
Ah,
yeah, this is a trick question.
Energy.
How? Energy is the right answer, but how?
It's pulmonary.
What does that mean? Pulmonary just means lung.
In and out. So delivery. Well, not just in and out, in, around, out.
We got to get more detailed than this. The way that breath creates energy is in the cellular furnace. All cells create energy through oxidation. Oxidation is fire, it's burning. It is the Agni that they talk about in Ayurveda. And it is an essential element to the alchemical process. You cannot do alchemy without fire. And yes, James?
So in the addition of the first breath, we talk about some actual physiological, particular or physiochemical change in the
Yes.
body
Yes.
as a result of the breath. Right. Okay. So it's not just psychological anchoring like I was thinking.
No.
Okay. So it's a real
No,
physiological
we
process.
got to get to the physiological
Yeah,
to actually
Okay.
experience the alchemical change.
they're interconnected. There's an
Yeah.
interplay between them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Now,
So-
not all of this is found in mainstream alchemy. I'm pulling buttloads of my material from Sufism. Buttloads is a technical term.
It's a technical term, yes.
Yeah.
So I see Cindy's still unmuted. Did you have more you wanted to share, or?
Yes.
I studied pranayama in
Mhm.
yoga, and it's very useful. My goodness, it's great. And I'm searching for the answers, and I can't pull them out of my buttload. Sorry. I will mute.
So, pranayama, interesting thing. Prana is a kind of breath. You have prana and apana. Prana is the upward moving breath. Apana is the downward moving breath. And it's often associated with energy, but the first meaning of the word prana in Sanskrit is breath. Yama means to bind. It means to control, to yoke. So pranayama is the binding and control of the breath.
Hi, can I add something?
Yes,
Yeah.
please, because I'm talking your language here, so help me out.
So I just like you are so right. So I didn't know, but so prana can also like mean that like the life force that comes through the breath, what they call like ki or chi
Yes.
in the Chinese medicine. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's basically
absolutely
like
the case. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
And
like
ki and chi also mean breath, interestingly
yeah.
enough. Yeah. So,
So it's like regulation of life force, basically.
yes. And the life force starts at the cellular level
Yeah.
with the burning of, with the oxidizing of certain chemicals to produce energy. And
So-
part of that energy is produced as heat.
So that's
A
what happens
lizard
at
will
point
never
2.
be able to do pranayama.
Yeah. Poor lizard.
Poor lizard.
Sorry, dude.
So we can literally regulate the heat in our bodies through breath. There's a Indian and Tibetan practice. I can't remember the name in Sanskrit, but in Tibetan it's called Tummo. It is the yoga of the internal heat. And it is basically a breath practice that allows the people who've gotten good at it to literally sit in a snowbank and melt the snow around them throughout the day. And that's an example of this kind of heat that we're talking about, because they do it all with their breath. So the first breath is slow and easy and relaxed. So you're not doing anything wild with the breath. You just are breathing consciously. Oftentimes, when you get to the point of confronting the behavior that has to be dealt with, you will get into things like holding your breath. How many times have you gone, I can't deal with this, right? So the first breath allows you to stay calm when experiencing the object contained within the alchemical vessel. And it is an object, it's not subject. It is a behavioral artifact. When I have done this enough, I get to the first shock. If
This
I
is
have
point 3,
seriously, yeah, this is at 3. If I have seriously applied myself to this first practice of creating the vessel and staring into the vessel with really gentle breath so that I am not affected by the artifact, then I can take the first shock. The first shock is called the whitening, or this is actually the first shock after the entering shock. The whitening involves, if this were physical alchemy, I would have taken the sludge that I created at step 1 and 2 and set it on fire to burn it down to white ash in a process called calcining. This is sort of the same. This is the withdrawal of the energy from the behavior. What is the easiest way to withdraw energy from something? If I have a log, a wooden log, what's the best way to get energy out of that log? Show of hands. Any ideas?
Burn it.
Burn it, yes. You chop it up into pieces and then you set those pieces on fire, and as much of the energy as can be is released as heat. This is kind of what you're doing here.
And what remains is that white ash.
Yes. And the energy. The energy is contained within the alchemical vessel. This is where the crossing of the equator comes in, the yellow death. You have to choose at this point to continue. You can, at point 4, you can still go back to 1. You can make more sludge. You can reconstitute this thing in its former glory. But if you go through the yellow death, if you go through the yellowing, that energy is removed from that artifact forever. Just as you take a nice log of wood and reduce it to white ash, to a substance that can no longer be burned. There is nothing left in it that has any energy to release that you can get at. Same basic idea. And you have to be very intentional on this, because when you feel the heat of that energy as in the alchemical vessel that is inside your body, you have to apply the second breath. The second breath increases the alchemical heat in your body. The first breath is like gently blowing on a coal. The second breath is a bellows that you're going, right? This breath is not just, gentle, relaxed breathing. This is intentional breathing, which is very close to what we have been teaching, that involves the long, slow exhale, which is the breathing on the coal, the pause, and then the sucking the energy back into the body and the inhale. Now, I'm not going to give you the details of how to do these, because that requires basically serious, either small group or one-on-one work, but I'm giving you the sense of what we're talking about here. If you have used the second breath correctly over a long period of time, you will have completely withdrawn the energy from the artifact that is the mechanical behavior. And then you have to sacrifice that energy. That's the second shock. That's the sixth shock, the rubedo, the reddening. And that means you literally you give the energy to God, for lack of a better term. You go, universe, I have this energy. And if it's a true surrender, the universe gives some of it back to you. And that is the point 7 on this, which is the regeneration of the purified elements into the higher being body. That's a metaphor. It's not real. You don't have another body inside of you. As far as anybody can tell, it's metaphor. But you use that energy to build, to crystallize something that is permanent and is connected to your essential self, not to your mechanical ego. And this uses the third breath. The third breath is the hottest breath. And we talked before we started the recording about people who did rebirthing and breath of fire and things like that. This breath looks like that, but it isn't. If you are doing this breath correctly, you will not get dizzy. You will not get tetany. Do you know what tetany is? When you hyperventilate, your hands begin to like clench up, your muscles begin to lock because you have changed the pH balance of your blood. It's gone from acid to alkaline or alkaline to acid. I don't remember which, but it's a weird experience. The rebirth people really dug it. But it shows a lack of understanding of the breath. If you are doing this breath properly, it is a deep and fairly fast breath that creates a lot of heat in your body, but it doesn't hyperventilate you. Hyperventilation is actually contraindicated in this. When you hyperventilate, you blow all of the carbon dioxide out of your system, or as much as you can, which means the oxygen does not transfer easily from your hemoglobin to your cells, which is why you get dizzy. You don't get dizzy from the oxygen, you get dizzy from lack of oxygen. So it is a form of rigorous breathing that does not remove the carbon dioxide from your bloodstream, does not give you tetany, does not make you dizzy, does not make you feel hyperventilated. And with that, this is the purifying fire. This is what allows you to create the higher being body from the energy, or to add the higher energy to your higher being body that you are creating. This is the Philosopher's Stone. And then you have the exiting shock, which is again the beginning shock, because you're going to need to go through this process multiple times until every bit of you has been purified. And then you are the Philosopher's Stone. You are the medicine of metals. You are the elixir of life at that point. So I'm going to stop the share so I can stare at everybody. All right, so that is a general outline of the Enneagram of alchemical change or alchemical transformation within the true vessel of alchemy, which is yourself. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah,
Go for it.
Jonathan.
So this is a piece-by-piece process.
Pretty much.
It's
You're
like-
not going to do this all at once to yourself, because you will probably explode or burn yourself up or something equally unpleasant.
Yeah, so you might be able to get away with getting a few pieces into the vessel and burning them up. But then at some point, the old self that you're trying to purify is going to cotton on to what's going on. And it's going to be like, aha, I'm going to run and hide from this. And
Yeah, that just makes it more interesting. This is where
mine's
you
going to
get,
rush in and just try and justify its behavior. It's like, you shouldn't be trying to dissolve and purify me. I'm good for you.
yeah, and you agree with it. Then you dissolve and purify it. Yeah, this is yeah, in yoga, there is a concept called samskara, which is the subliminal memory traces that you carry with you that are below the level of consciousness. This is specifically for dealing with those as they come up, and they tend to come up one at a time, and they do hide. And every time you go back to dip into your unconscious to find the next samskara, it's harder than the last. But you are also stronger than the last time because you have reclaimed a bunch of energy.
I believe we've done a video about that, right? About samskaras
Probably.
as a topic or something along
I
those
wouldn't be
lines.
surprised. I mean, we've
Yeah.
been talking for almost 4 years now, so we've covered a lot of subjects.
Yeah, so if I can find it, I will suggest we add it to the
Yeah.
end of the video, along
Yeah.
with an Enneagram process video and a 3 forces. So, yeah. But Jonathan, thank you for. I mean,
Yeah.
you got to
And you will
chuckle at
notice
this stuff.
in when you are doing alchemy, in my experience, which is admittedly limited, and hopefully we will get my buddy the alchemist on soon to talk about the actual process that he uses. But you can purify something over and over and over again. You've heard the term quintessential. Any idea what that means? Quintessential. What is quint? 5. 5.
Gregory, yep.
Yep. So quintessential is the 5-time distilled essence. Once is not enough. Quatra quint. So, like when you are making the solvent is usually alcohol. The best alcohol comes from red wine, organic red wine. To get the alcohol out of the red wine, you have to distill it. And once is not enough. You distill it over and over again at lower and lower heats until the 5th heat is so low that the alcohol barely evaporates and then is condensed and returned to a flask. And that's where you get your quintessential alcohol, which is the perfect reagent according to the ancient alchemists. Do not drink it. You'll be sorry.
Verse. Yeah. Mr. Keem.
Yes, I was thinking. I assume this. Yeah, this work is would be difficult to do alone. It must be easier with a guide or
Yep.
or friends.
Which is kind of weird because most alchemists are known for working alone. But the great alchemists were always couples. There is one of the most famous of all of the mysterious alchemists was Nicholas Flamel, who you've probably heard of if you have read the Harry Potter books, the first book, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. That was actually should have been the Philosopher's Stone. But Nicholas Flamel was an alchemist who, along with his wife, supposedly completed the entire process. And then they disappeared. They lived as a very humble life, but it turns out, we discover after they vanished, that they were devoting huge amounts of money to charity in various ways and forms. And nobody ever heard from them again. They just, maybe they're still around.
Yeah, because I was thinking that it's easier for other people to see our like what Jonathan said, that our hidden what's that, hidden stuff that maybe we are not see it easily.
Yeah, and our process is not exactly what this is. When I say our process, I mean what we teach in the 9-sided circle uses a somewhat different process than this, but this is part of the whole alchemical teaching that has been used in Sufism, as well as other places. And I felt like it was important to finish off this series on alchemy with this. Yeah, we have more fun ways. But it still is going to do basically the same thing. It is still the purification of the ego, one way or the other.
Yep. So, I do see that James has his hand up, but I also see that Gregory has been unmuted. Did you
Yeah.
have anything else you wanted to offer, Gregory, or ask?
Well, I get the thing that keeps on coming up with me, leaves the breath and goes to paying attention to whatever the thought form is without identifying and transforming it that way.
Well, if you can't do that, you can breathe all you want and it ain't going to do you any good. That's why I mentioned that first. Identifying the artifact and surrounding it with attention is the alchemical vessel. When you have that, then you can apply the heat of the breath to it. If you don't have that, you can breathe all you want and nothing happens. So I think you have it in the right order, for sure. But in this particular process, it's not one or the other, it's both together. But attention first, then breath. Does that make sense? And I could be completely wrong about this, but that's how I understood it.
Hind has a thought.
Yes.
Yes. I was wondering, is the breath can be related to the mantras or the zikr?
Shit, I'm
They
sorry,
can.
I forgot about James.
Yeah, James, we haven't forgot you.
Sorry, we'll come back. Yeah. Hint.
Yeah, in the sense that the mantras and the zikrs will actually give you patterns of breathing. So if you are doing a zikr, a particular zikr, like you're doing Allah, Allah, I, look at what my breath does. Allah, Allah, I, right? The words force my breath into a particular pattern. So in that sense, yes, the zikr will pattern the breath. And we use different zikrs to give us different patterns. Does that sort of answer your question?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Also, cool shirt.
Yeah, I love that shirt.
Yeah,
Yeah, only the cool kids have that shirt.
I do.
Yes. All right. Thanks, Hind. James, I thank you for your patience.
I'm kind of embarrassed because it's almost kind of trivial, but just quickly harking back to the Flamel legend. Wasn't part of the legend that they disappeared from France and went to live with the dervishes or something?
That could be. I have not heard that myself, but it could be anything. I could buy that.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm not sure. I may have just got it from a Yeats story, Rosa Alchemica. It may have just been a throwaway bit of romanticism on his part, but I just have a notion, I've heard it somewhere, that they actually achieved immortality, went to live with the dervishes. I don't know.
Yeah, well, if I achieved more immortality, I'd probably go live with the dervishes, so it makes sense.
We would support that, of course. Yep.
Yeah, and if you find out something concrete about it, let us know. Write up something in the forum.
Sure.
What's a fun tidbit, though? Thanks, James.
Not a problem.
Any other questions or thoughts?
I just
Yeah,
I was
Rishabh,
just
yes.
curious. I also had a look at the chart that you shared that day, and now since him mentioned that zikr, so is that the only reason, changing the pattern of breathing of the zikr, or do they also serve some other purpose?
Oh yeah, they serve other purposes, but the first thing that they serve is helping you regulate your breath.
Mhm. Okay.
And this is cross-culturally true, which is something that I find really interesting.
Mhm.
What do you mean when you say that, Mushtaq?
It's not just Sufis who do that, or Hindus with their mantras, or Buddhists with their chants, but you go all over the place. Like, you want to learn that kind of breath control, go to Australia and learn to play a didgeridoo.
Mm.
That will give you some really interesting breath control. Go learn Native American singing. That will give you some really interesting breath control. And it's always connected with spirituality. So, I mean, there is that. And we don't know what the truth is.
Mhm.
But there does seem to be some kind of functional pattern at play that can be apparent with anyone doing it. And then there are deeper layers beneath that about meaning and significance and all that esoteric stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, that was thank you for asking that, Rashid.
Oh yeah, I was just like wondering. Thanks. Because like, yeah, there have been similar things in like Sanskrit as well, using the mantras to create the breath thing. So
Yeah. Yep. Cindy, how are you doing? Did you have another thought, Rashid, before I move on to someone else?
Oh no, that's all. Thank you.
All right, cool. Yeah, Cindy.
I'm interested in the first part of the alchemical process of the identifying the problem behavior and putting it in a box, so to speak.
Bracketing it is sometimes.
Bracketing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not me, not mine. So disidentification with the.
Yeah. This is
and-
not me. This is a behavior that I sometimes do.
And that allows for space,
Yes.
which is great. Because then you
Yes.
can.
Then you can work with it. If you
Yes.
go around going, I am this behavior, you can't work with it because it's you.
And I think
It's,
we've all experienced that. you
Oh
know?
yeah.
Like,
Absolutely.
I suck because I am a terrible person who does this, that, and the other thing. But when you take away that element of identification, you have the opportunity not to suck.
And one also gets back their power
Yes.
as not me, not mine. And here's what I'm doing about it with all of the breath work that has been, which is really important for people to disidentify and not be sucked in and have some steps, some sort of advocacy to do something
Yeah.
about it.
And every time you don't use energy to do that behavior, you get to,
You get to
keep that energy.
put it towards things that really might feel good or at least serve you, as opposed to being trapped in these behaviors that are unpleasant or not helping us out, any of those things. Yeah.
No, thanks. Thanks for asking. That's where I'm at. Yeah.
Who else? Chris, I know we've had some nice little inserts from you, but yeah, what are you thinking about?
Well, you mentioned that this Enneagram is different from some of the other ones that we work with. And I mean, what's noticeable is the denying being where it is.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still like the prepare, act, shock pattern,
Yeah.
So what are the, maybe I'm missing what the major differences are.
Rather than if you think about how the kitchen goes, that's one particular
Sorry, loud motorbike over here. I don't know if that.
I understand completely. Yeah.
Well, can you say that again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you think of like the kitchen Enneagram, that's laid out in a particular way and finishes at 0.7. 0.8 is not related to the process in the same way. So this is organized in a slightly different way to look at a different sort of process. Basically, the difference is subtle, but if you compare the two, and we haven't even talked about the moving lines in this. Moving lines play an important part, and we probably don't have time to get to it.
I don't think so, alas.
Yeah, because that's gonna take almost as much time as this.
Mm.
But consider the moving lines, and I'm going to take this diagram or both of these diagrams, and I'm going to throw them up in the comments to this video so that everybody can download them and stare at them and play with them and pull their hair out. Or
So you mean on the forum, right?
yeah, on the forum. Yeah.
So on the comments below, wherever it is we
This is
post.
another reason why you really want to either be on the mailing list or on the forum, because if you're on the mailing list and you're not on the forum, you can send us an email and go, hey, I'd really like a copy of that, and we'd email it to you.
Yep.
But if you're on the forum, it's right there.
And then the denying, affirming, reconciling, that's the evolution process, yeah?
Yes, it's the process of evolution, and
Sense.
that makes perfect sense in this case. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be watching this video again. Thank you.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's always nice to see which of our videos entice you out from the desert to come and hang out with us.
Yeah. Thumbs up. Yeah. Shuri, how are you doing? Oh, yeah. First, we have Jonathan with his hand raised.
Yeah. Good. And we have to remember that Cherie's going to need to take off pretty quick.
We do.
So,
yeah.
Jonathan, lay it on us.
Now, what happens if I decide that I don't want to do the whole self-observing thing? It's too much trouble to try and release all this trapped energy that's in the false personalities, and that I'm going to just connect to a pure energy through self-observation, self-witnessing, and feed my essence that way. And then, yeah, you see what I'm saying? I'm just going to bypass all that.
Yeah, you want to lay under a pile of shit and try and breathe out through a straw.
But don't these people that go to the cave in the Himalayas do that? It's just that.
Maybe. And how many of them retain that after they come back and get into a traffic jam in Calcutta? Yeah, we're after something permanent here. Permanent change requires addressing every part of yourself. And you can do the spiritual bypassing thing.
I was going to say,
I wouldn't even stop you.
It's, sometimes that's the medicine that's called for, but it's not going to be a permanent fix. It's not going to take you anywhere.
Yeah, well, it'll take you somewhere. It just might not be where you want to go.
Does that help at all, any of that, Jonathan?
Yeah, and I'm thinking you might find that some of the energy that you might make connection with will actually feed these personalities that are false and make them even stronger.
Yep, you could definitely do that, because that's what they do. They want all of your energy. And they don't care what center they get it from. That's that whole wrong use of centers thing.
I'm imagining like a Hungry Hippos game right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you have ever played that, but it's like there's this plastic tray of a board, quote unquote a board, and it's got these little mechanical hippos in the four corners. And the object of the game is you tap this button really manically, and the hippos gobble up all these little balls that are like food. And whoever gets the most wins. And these centers, when they're not in their proper relationship to one another, that's kind of what happens. If they're greedy, they just gobble it up and use it all up, and then there's none left for the others. So there's a metaphor for you, I guess. All right, Sheree, yes.
I'm maybe a bit tired here.
That's all right, yeah.
Thinking about the behaviors, we're recognizing the trigger, what somebody used that term with me recently, that they were triggered by certain things, and how we burn that trigger up to recognize that we're being reactive to certain words, certain behaviors, and we're not really responding with our awareness, because it's just what it just blows up. And so what we're trying to do with this burning up and processing this trigger, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's
Yeah.
fair, yeah.
So recognizing what triggers our own upset, our own reaction to something, and then being able to have that space enough, as Cindy says, to be able to move to the next step. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, because the thing about samskaras, which we've talked about before, is that there was a moment when they did serve a purpose. And that time has happened, or, whatever, and we move on from that. We figure out why it is kind of, it has overstayed its welcome, so to speak.
I've seen where the ego has hooked into the wound and actually is quite proud of having that wound.
It can happen that way.
Oh, God. Yeah,
It happens that way a lot.
Yeah.
People love their traumas.
Oh, they do. And it's like, my trauma is bigger than yours, so I'm more worthy, more emotional, more sensitive, more, oh, please, And I'm thinking, oh, say nothing, do not engage. But that's, part of recognizing how we can actually, is it transcend, or is it move past, or is it mature, or is it you're letting go?
It is transcending and moving past and digesting.
I was going to say digesting. For me, that's my experience of it. It's digesting, making it into food, and
getting the nutrients out and getting rid of what's left.
Yeah, so that's where that oxidation is happening, that bringing up, and then you use it as a fuel to transcend. Okay, got it. Okay.
We're going to cause ourselves problems if we just cut ourselves off from it in many cases, because like I said, it's there for a reason, even if that reason is not pertinent to the now. Or it's not helpful in the now. So we don't want to bypass it. It does have to be dealt with.
Yeah. So being aware of how we create our stories and how we parade it and wear it on our sleeve is not necessarily processing. We're being stuck.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
Actually
and I think people are going to have their own, just like with grief and things like that. Everybody has their own way of getting through grief healthfully. People are going to have slightly differentiated ways of digesting their triggers, or whatever it is, and yet it is going to have this same flavor of not bypassing it, but making it into something that is, fuel going forward, that is not dependent on identifying with it, that has allowed you to have room to breathe around it.
well, that's a maturity that is lacking on
It
some people.
takes it
Yeah.
takes time, it takes energy, it takes understanding to get to a point where that's possible. And no one can make you get to that point.
That identification with that grief, that hurt, that the sorrow, it can stick on so tight, and it's so
Yeah.
hard to go, because it's like, well, who am I without that?
That's a scary thing. I think a lot of us experience that, and not necessarily in obvious ways.
So what does a whole person look like?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not there yet. What do you think, Mushtalk?
My theory is that a whole person looks like everybody else.
Yeah, I mean,
They're
I
not going to
think
be, I mean, you might enjoy hanging out with them a little bit more,
Mhm.
but why should they be anything different?
Yeah. And I think people get, you know, as we are working on this sense of taking back that energy that we've been losing through these triggers and things like that, people can in turn pivot a little bit and make a lifestyle out of quote unquote healing and the drama of working through these things. And that's just another attachment. It's just got a different spin on it, really. So we have to just work on that tendency to just like get our little talons into these things and
Yeah.
slap it on our chest like a name tag.
You
Healing
know what
is
else we got to do?
not an ongoing forever kind of thing in the sense of successful healing, I guess we could say. That's kind of a do or do not kind of deal.
Yeah. And it doesn't even really have anything to do with healing.
Right. Yeah.
Healing yourself is what you have to do to get to the point where you do this. Unhealed people can't do this.
I like that you're making that distinction. Yeah. Yeah, I think that gets back to that image I like of plugging the leaks so that you can
Yep.
have the energy to dig deeper and do this stuff that we're talking about tonight.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have
So-
noticed so much energy exhausted on keeping the hurt, the trigger, the wound, whatever, intact. And
Oh,
you
yeah.
just, oh, if you could use
It's an
that.
industry.
Yeah.
There's an entire industry out there designed to help people go over their traumas over and over and over again and reheal and reheal and reheal and reheal for the rest of their lives for only $5,000 a seminar.
A mere 5,000. Woo!
Yeah.
Don't you want to heal, Shuri? Doesn't that mean anything to you?
I'm a bit deaf. Yeah, no, yeah, we want to use our energy wisely. Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course. So I think
James, and then maybe
James, and then we wrap it up because
how
I'm
about-
getting hungry.
Gregory, James, then Gregory, and then we'll peace out.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, just quickly at some point. Me first, yeah? Was it me or Gregory?
You first, yes.
You're talking now, so go for it.
Okay. At some point, it'd be really interesting to hear you guys elaborate on the difference between healing and the work. Like,
Oh, we've done that. We've done that till we're blue in the face.
But
Go to
Okay, so there's-
our YouTube
Yeah.
channel and
Oh, we
look
did a video
up
on healing. Yeah.
look up remedial versus generative work, where I wax rhapsodical for at least an hour on this. Yeah.
Thank you. Good. I shall. That's me done.
Yeah, there's a couple I think we did.
But let's get to Gregory,
related
who's been so
topics.
quiet and polite and
Yeah,
not even throwing shit at us.
Gregory, I welcome you to have an opportunity to share any last thoughts or questions or anything.
Well, I get back to awareness. And when I'm working with the breath, I find I always, there's this point where I often find this underlying trauma. I guess I'd call it sometimes the intergenerational trauma, like finding something that at first, when I become aware of it, is a sensation that seems to hurt a little bit, or I interpret it as hurt. And then when I don't identify with it, pretty soon it goes away or transforms.
Does it ever come back?
In a while, but it usually takes a while. Yeah.
Okay, so it hasn't gone away. Yes, no, maybe?
Yes. I mean, it seems to be pretty persistent. My father had severe PSDT. He was a Korean combat veteran, and never talked about what he went through. But still, I realized that, especially after he died, that he was carrying quite a load there, and my legacy from that really isn't, nothing compared to what he was, but to me, it's still significant, and it seems to me like something I probably have as a background my whole life, in some ways, to deal with.
And there are ways to address that are very useful and very helpful. This is not one of them. And I'm sorry, if you tried to jump from what you're describing there into this, it would not work well for you. You're going to have to do the work to heal that stuff up. And you probably inherited a little bit of the PTSD from your father, because that tends to be handed down. And there's probably other things, and those need to be coped with. So there are other tools for that, and we've touched on some of them in our various videos. This is just not that. This is not the tool that you use for dealing with with that stuff at this point. Like I said, you have to heal to the point where you are not being run by those traumas before you can work on this with this particular process. I wish I could say, yeah, one size fits all, but it never does.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's okay. I mean, that is the nature of this human experience.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that you are behind everybody else or anything, because we all have shit we got to clear up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a matter of learning how to do that first.
Yep. I certainly relate to, having stuff to clear up. Yeah.
Yeah, if you don't, it comes back and it bites you on the ass.
Right. So each of us has our unique bit of work to do.
Yeah.
But Gregory, thank you for sharing. And
yeah, that's it. It's important that people hear what you have to say on that.
James, riffing off of what I was saying, he says, I myself am particularly full of shit. Aren't we all? Aren't we all? But thank you for your vulnerability, Gregory, and feel free to keep in touch. We may not have ready-made solutions right now, but it sounds like that's kind of an ongoing process anyway. So thank you. And thank you to all of you, because your stories help enrich this conversation no matter what. And that means a lot.
Alrighty, we are back on to Brady Bunch mode.
Brady Bunch mode. Well, thank you everyone for hanging out with us this evening, and I guess this kind of wraps up our alchemy month, except for our
Yeah, except for our friend who
hopefully,
we're going to
yeah.
try and do an interview with.
And I think I'm excited for that discussion. I think along
Yeah.
with many of you, I'm going to learn a lot from that. So anyways, we can wave to each other and wave to everybody
Say
watching on
bye
the
all.
replay. Bye everybody.